Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May. I'm a Senior Manager of Trading and Derivatives Education here at Schwab, and this is Getting Started with Thinkorswim. And today, that title is particularly apropos if you are brand new to the Thinkorswim desktop trading software platform. You're in exactly the right place. I have put together a series of 8 lessons where we're going to start right at the beginning. We're going to talk about how to download Thinkorswim and then progress all the way through gaining a good degree of familiarity and proficiency with navigating the tools available on Thinkorswim desktop platform. This is going to be lesson 1 in that series. Today's going to be all about downloading and navigation of that, but we're going to even place an example trade by the time we're done today. So it should be something interesting for the beginners, but also there should be plenty for those who have a lot of experience with Thinkorswim. Always nice to brush up on even familiar tools or find something new. So before we dive into any of that, though, let me first of all say a quick hello to those that are joining us in the live stream. Great to see so many familiar names out there. Hello there, Pin Shape, Jimmy, Do Not Copy, Eva, Life in the Fast Lane, Lawrence, David, everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. We always appreciate your attendance, your contributions to these discussions. There were a couple of those names that I didn't entirely recognize. So if this is your very first time, welcome. Great to have you on board. I think you're very likely in the right place. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after the fact, well, enjoy the presentation. But if you'd like to join us for the subsequent lessons in the live stream, you can join us here. This is a Wednesday webcast series, and we kick things off promptly at 2 Eastern time. If you'd like to be here in the live stream audience, we'd love to have you. But another thing that I want to let you know, if you're here in the live stream audience, I have my very good friend Kevin Horner hanging out in the chats with us today. Kevin's going to be addressing any questions that I can't get to during the flow of the presentation. Kevin and I have been working together now for years. So, Kevin, definitely a great resource to have here with us. Thanks for having my back, Kevin. And if you're not following Kevin and me on X, please do that. It's another great resource for connecting with your favorite Schwab instructors. You can follow Kevin on X at Kevin Horner CS. You can follow me there at Cameron May CS. But let's dive into this. Let's get acquainted with the Thinkorswim desktop platform. And of course, as we do, we need to pause first of all to consider the risks associated with trading or investing. Risk is real, so bear these important disclosures in mind. The information here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. Options carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. Investing involves risks, including the loss of principal, and any investment decision you make in your self-directed account is solely your responsibility. All right, so let's outline what we're going to be doing in this series of lessons. Here in lesson 1, we're going to focus on downloading the general navigation of the Thinkorswim platform. So we're going to download that platform. We're going to, I'll show you where to download it. I already have it downloaded. But we'll get acquainted with the general navigation. We'll use some of the tools on the platform. We'll even plan and place an example trade. That'll have us prepared for lesson 2, where we're going to get into the more specific areas of the platform, go through in a very methodical way. We're going to be covering these in good detail, how to use the monitor tab in lesson 2, the trade tab in lesson 3, in lesson 4 is going to take us to the charts tab, and so on. So make sure that you watch each of these lessons. I think there's going to be value for just about everybody there. But let's go right to an agenda for today, which is explore the Thinkorswim platform navigation after downloading. We're going to discuss some of the trading and investing tools and resources, get acquainted with some of those, and we're going to even use 1 or 2 of those to plan and place an example trade. Really looking forward to this discussion. I'm looking forward to this lesson series. Let's acquaint ourselves right now with how to download Thinkorswim desktop. Now, if you're not familiar with Thinkorswim, maybe it's just a word to you at this point. Thinkorswim desktop is trading software that is free to download from within your Schwab online account, and it's intended as a great complementary set of tools and resources for evaluating market conditions, for managing portfolios, for all of that. And it's a great complement to the tools and resources that are already available on your Schwab online account. So to access Thinkorswim desktop, will pop up here on your Schwab account. You just log in. This is just an example demonstration account that I'm going to be using today, just essentially what we call a paper money account. And I'm going to go to the trade tab, and right there on that drop-down menu, under the word trade, under the phrase trading platforms, we click on Thinkorswim desktop. And from here, the download is pretty straightforward. You'll just scroll down just a little bit, and you'll see this big blue button that says learn how to enable Thinkorswim. You'll just click on that and then just follow the on-screen prompts, and that'll guide you through the process, helping you to understand generally what Thinkorswim is, but also help you accomplish the download, whether you're using a Mac or a PC. Same process, right? Now, once you've downloaded Thinkorswim, it's going to create an icon on your computer's desktop. It'll also position Thinkorswim as one of the apps in your start menu on your computer, however you access that. So just look for Thinkorswim. I think that probably the easiest navigation is to just look for the Thinkorswim splash icon. So it looks like this one where I'm circling just in the upper left of your screen here. There'll be an icon on your computer's desktop that looks like that. You just click on that, and you're going to get a login screen that pops up that looks like this. All right. So here's our login screen, and it's going to be asking for a login ID and a password. And this is where it might get, the blood pressure might rise a little bit. Oh, no, I don't have a Thinkorswim username and password. Yes, you do. If you've successfully logged into your Schwab account, that means that you have Schwab credentials. You just use those same Schwab online credentials to log into your Thinkorswim. There's no need for a special set of credentials. Now, before we log in, though, what I want you to notice down at the bottom of this login, there's a little toggle prompt. And it's asking you, hey, Cameron, do you want to access your live trading and manage your existing portfolios? Or are you here to get a little bit of practice trading through something called paper money? David says the Astro Splash. David, congratulations for knowing the name of the icon. A little bit of an internal name. It doesn't get used very often in public, but there we go. Yeah. Reminds you of something else. Anyway, this is one of the great features of Thinkorswim, and that is that there is a practice version of the platform that functions almost identically to the real thing. One of the big stumbling blocks for a would-be new self-directed trader or would-be new self-directed investor is it's nerve-wracking to learn new strategies, to use new tools, and try to do that without messing up and losing money while we're doing it. Well, paper money allows us to sidestep that. We can learn new strategies and tools in a no-risk environment that works almost essentially exactly like the same thing. There are some little differences here and there, but yeah, paper money is a great place. And this is where I'm going to be demonstrating everything from here forward on paper money. And you'll see how useful that can be. But we can also access our live accounts. Another thing I want to point out is that I've already loaded up paper money right here. And we're going to go to that in just a moment. But it is possible to have both open at the same time. That's a common question that I get. Hey, I have my paper money up and I have to close it down and go back to the icon and launch it again, log into my real account and do some real trading. Nope, we can actually access both at the same time. What I would suggest we do here, if you look at this paper money behind this login, you'll notice it has kind of a white overall appearance, very bright. That's actually one of the settings that's available in Thinkorswim. It could also be a dark appearance generally. And what I would suggest that we do is if we have paper money and a live account going at the same time, make one light and the other one dark. And that way there's no question which one we're using. So we don't accidentally think we're in paper doing practice trading when we're actually in our live accounts and expose ourselves to risks that we didn't intend to. So what we do there is before logging in, click on this little gear right down here. We'd select live trading, click on the little gear, and just change the color scheme from light to dark, and then save that. And then you're going to have that dark background. All right. So I'm just going to hide that. Let's just assume that we're now logging in and we find ourselves on essentially the starting point on our Thinkorswim desktop software platform. And this is known as the home screen. You can see it up here in blue at the top of my screen. Has a few, I'm going to let you explore the elements of this screen. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, because I want to spend the bulk of our time on the navigation of the platform and maybe even planning and placing an example trade. But I want to hit the big things like, Cameron, where do I find my balances? How do I find my stocks or my options that I'm trading? How do I place a new trade? How do I follow that trade? Those are kind of basic things that people like to know when they first use this software. So from this home screen, I'm going to move us over here to the Monitor tab. And through this presentation, we're going to be moving left to right through these tabs just as a high-level overview. We're going to be getting into those more precisely, as you saw in the outline for our lessons, in future lessons. So I'm going to click on the Monitor tab, and here we find us. This is really what I think a lot of you Thinkorswim traders or users consider to be their home screen. It's where they can monitor current trades and current positions. So from here, let's get acquainted with the general navigation. What you'll immediately notice is that there is a left sidebar, and over here we generically have what we call the gadgets. And then across the top, we have a couple of rows, it's actually a few rows of tabs that just help us get to anywhere on the platform we want to find ourselves. It also allows us to get back to, let's say we've dug into the platform, we want to get back to where we wanted to go. We just go up here and click on Monitor. So you can't get lost here. If you ever feel like you've wandered too deeply into the catacombs of Thinkorswim Desktop, click on Monitor and you'll be back in familiar territory again. All right. So let's start up here in the upper left. And I want to first note, this is a big question for some traders. Hey, I want to see whether I'm in paper or my real money. What's the total value of this account and how much cash do I have in that account? That can be found right up here under the account info area. And by the way, do you notice the quite reassuring label that's right up here in the top left? PM stands for paper money. That means this is the practice account. This is not the live account. This is simulated trading. So I know if whatever I do here, I'm not exposing my money to any risk. So it's a great place to practice with new tools, practice with new strategies maybe we've stumbled across. And then once we're comfortable, move over to the live platform. But in any case, we have our account info up here, and you'll see two names here, NetLiq and Day Trades, and then Cash and Sweep Vehicle. Both are a little bit wordy, but really what they're telling us, this stands for the net liquidating value of this account or this portfolio. Now you'll see a series of stars here. That's because I have my privacy settings on. There are times when we're sitting at home and we want to be using our account, but we don't want people to see our balances. We don't want to see we don't want people to see our account numbers, right? That can be changed right here where it says NetLiq and Day Trades. When we click on that, I'm going to toggle off the privacy. This is just a demonstration. It's a fake account, so I'm not exposing anything that's sensitive here. But if I toggle that off, now I can see, okay, this is a $425-ish thousand portfolio. It's a paper portfolio. Don't get too excited. And there's about $198,000 of cash in that $425,000. So there we go. That's a quick way to check our balances, see how much the total portfolio is. Answers a big question for some. Let's go across this upper row, quickly talk about things. This just telling me I'm connected to my internet, which is good. This is telling me that I'm seeing real-time data. It's possible if this were delayed, it would give us a prompt there that it's delayed. But in any case, there's the current time. I can navigate among my accounts. Watch this. If I come back over here, let's switch on our privacy again. But right up here, I can navigate among the different accounts. So if an investor has several different accounts that are householded together in their Schwab account, for example, they could navigate between and among those accounts. We can see all accounts. We can see individual accounts. Like this is just an example, fake margin account, or this is a fake IRA account. And we can do that with privacy enabled so we don't see those account numbers. So I'm going to leave those there. That's fine. We can go back to the home screen here. We can check messages from Thinkorswim here. We can access a support team here. Chat rooms here for other users. And finally, we have the setup. Now, I'm going to show you one thing. Wiley, you saying they're not trusting me with enough money here, with enough fake money? But the setup is where the user of the platform can change overall settings for this platform. For example, I already showed you how we can change from a light background to a dark background. Well, there's a toggle for that up here as well. So if I click on setup and I just go for the settings of the general application here, I can change things like the look and feel of thinkorswim. So let's just change our color scheme here. Let's select dark and hit apply. Oh, it's being a little bit finicky. I think I confused it somewhat because I started my dark setup here and I didn't finish it anyway. But we would change that background color right there, changing things from light to dark and back and forth. Okay. Now, the second row here is where we can access other features of thinkorswim. And I'm just going to hover over these as we go. Now, well, let's talk about the monitor tab very generally first. We're going to give it a lot more attention in lesson 2, which is dedicated to the monitor tab. But the monitor tab is where we would go to check on current trades, current orders, and current positions. Orders are different than positions. Orders are an attempt to get into or out of a position, right? So as we go down the page on the monitor tab, we can see here are today's trade activity. And this will show any what we call working orders or open orders, orders that we placed that haven't yet filled. So for example, if I click on this little caret, and anytime you see a little arrow on the thinkorswim platform, that means that there's something hidden there. Arrows are a hide, unhide feature on thinkorswim. So I'm going to click on that little arrow, and this is showing me the details of existing orders. For example, I happen to have an order to sell 200 shares of AT&T right here. But I can check my working orders. I can check filled orders for the day in this portfolio. I can see that I sold 100 shares of BAC at a price of $48.60. If I've canceled any orders, I can see that right there. For example, when those shares sold, there was an associated stop order that was canceled. And then there's a feature known as a rolling strategies feature, which allows, let's say, people that trade covered calls, they can set up orders to manage those positions automatically, to roll at specified moments. So that's a little bit deeper than some of you might be interested in, but we can find today's order activity or trade activity right here. And then just down below, we can see the details of the individual accounts. Now, right now, we're looking at just the individual IRA. So I can see within that IRA, we have a range of positions. We have some Marriott, we have some Walmart, we have some Colgate-Palmolive, and there's a little arrow. We can click on the little arrow and it hides and obscures the details there. But in any case, as we look across the row here of those positions, we can see more details relating to those positions here on the monitor tab. So I'm monitoring existing positions. I can see that I have 100 shares of Colgate-Palmolive, purchased those for a trade price of $88. The market value right now, that's what MARK stands for. Market value is $92.12. Or in other words, I'm up about $12 per share on 100 shares. Our market change for the day, up about 8 cents. Profit or loss overall, $412. And profit and loss for the day is about $9. Now, finally, you'll see a column over here. By the way, profit or loss, PL open stands for profit or loss since we opened or initiated this position. In any case, we also see a default column that says BP effect. That stands for buying power effect. And that would be if we were in the margin account, this would tell us maybe how much of that margin buying power is being tied up in a specific trade. This is not a margin account. This is the fake IRA. So that's what's being displayed right there. So pretty powerful, but generally, I think fairly straightforward navigation tool here. So that's the monitor tab. I wanted to go into some detail on that one. The rest of the tabs, there are a couple where we're going to spend a little bit of time. Others we're going to kind of brush over, just in the interest of navigation. So before we go talk about the trade, the analyze, the scan tab, we also have these gadgets over in the left side. Karthik says, I don't see quantities for dozens of equity positions. If you don't see a quantity, if some of these are obscured, that might mean that it's not just an equity or stock position. We may have an associated options position. So you just click on the little arrow, and there are those quantities. In this case, yeah, that's an options trade. All right. Yep. Wiley's asking exactly the right question, Wiley. Yep. Are they stock or options positions? Exactly right. But over here in this left sidebar, we have these things known as gadgets. Now, these are just there. These are tools that a trader might want to have quick access to while they're using the rest of Thinkorswim. So I think of this as kind of like a parking lot where I position tools that I want quick access to. Sometimes I need them there, sometimes I don't. So there's a little toggle right there, and it's an arrow. It's another hide, reveal arrow. So if I click on that little toggle, it hides the left column. If I need to reveal that column and regain access to those tools, I can click on the little toggle. The advantage of being able to collapse that left column is now I have more space to work with. Look at how the rest of the platform now fills up my whole screen, and it just gives me more ability to navigate unrestricted. So if you look over here, we'll see these things called gadgets. This one at the top, the account info, always remains there. The others, though, you can see that I have a live news gadget, I have a calculator, I have a watch list, I have a scratch pad so I can maybe make some notes and say hello to everybody that's watching. Where did these come from? Well, these are added by the Thinkorswim user right down here at the bottom. You'll notice a little plus sign, add a gadget. So if I click on add gadget, so it's giving me a menu. Okay, Cameron, select a gadget. Which one do you want? So for example, maybe I want a quick chart, just a little thumbnail chart where I can keep an eye on securities of interest. And you'll see now I have this quick chart gadget. Let's click on the little arrow and collapse our scratch pad. And maybe for this quick chart, how about we bring up chart of Apple? There's a chart of Apple with drawings that I've made previously, and I can quickly check quotes and things like that. So these gadgets are pretty nifty. We can switch our gadgets using a little menu here. We could switch this to another gadget, just choose something else from the menu, or we could delete the gadget. We can reposition the gadgets using the arrows down below, all kinds of things that we can do. I'll get more into that in a future webcast. But that should get us really acquainted with what that left column is all about and how it might be used. So for now, let's just move it out of the way. We don't need it. We've already talked about it. And let's go through the rest of these tabs and maybe wrap things up with planning and placing a trade. And then maybe monitoring the progress of that trade. So our trade tab obviously is where we might go to place trades. We could look at all products. We can go to specific products. Our Analyze tab is commonly used by our options traders. We're going to dedicate entire lessons to each one of these, but the Analyze tab allows us to do things like set up a risk profile chart of complicated option strategies or even an entire portfolio at once. We can look at the probabilities of success or failure on a specific strategy. We can look at a range of economic data. We can use a tool to go back in time and place trades and test them over time called Think Back. We can look at corporate fundamentals. We can look at corporate earnings here. All sorts of things right there under that Analyze tab. Our Scan feature allows us to scan for stocks that are exhibiting specific characteristics. If a trader has a specific kind of stock they're interested in investing, maybe it's in a specific sector, maybe it has specific growth or value requirements, maybe it's exhibiting specific characteristics on a chart. All of those sorts of scans can be done using something called the Stock Hacker. The Options Hacker allows us to do similar things, but for options with that sort of options motivation and so on. Our Market Watch tool allows us, as the name implies, keep an eye on broad things in the markets. We can look at, we can set up watch lists with lots of different columns for monitoring different metrics or using the quotes tab. We can set up alerts to let us know when something's happening on a stock or an index. We can use this Visualize tool, which is kind of a breakdown of how the different companies in different sectors are doing in a specific day. We can check on earnings calendars and economic events calendars. All of that's available under the MarketWatch tab. The charts tool, we're definitely going to give more attention to today. But yeah, this is for those technicians, traders who like to use stock charts to plan and place trades for stock trading or options trading, whatever their motivation is. There's some other tools here that we'll talk about in lesson 8. We'll also go over education. And of course, if we need any help with the platform, you can contact us right through here. Now, it's not me specifically that you're contacting, but getting support for Thinkorswim. But let me point one thing out here on the education, because as much as I would like to explore every single little feature of Thinkorswim in each webcast that I deliver, I just can't do it. I can't anticipate and address every potential question. So there's a great resource for you as a user of Thinkorswim right here under education. It's called the Learning Center. Now, there are 2 subtabs. There's the Education and Learning Center. They almost sound like the same thing. Education, think about education this way. It's just getting more broadly educated about big market concepts like stock investing and options trading and stuff like that. The Learning Center is specifically learning about Thinkorswim itself. So if I were to choose the Learning Center, one thing that I wanted to point out to you as a great resource is right here where it says How to Thinkorswim. And as we scroll down a little bit below, you'll notice there's a little Getting Started area, learning about the left sidebar, understanding charts. You can just click on this, and it's going to break this down very much in the same way that I'm breaking down my series of lessons. So yeah, that's a really good resource. So I definitely wanted to point that out. All right, so let's go back here to the Monitor tab, because now we're starting to dig down into those catacombs. Are we feeling a little bit lost? Hopefully not. If I go back to the Monitor tab, now we're back in familiar territory. I'm going to let you, of course, encourage you to explore using paper money. Explore these features on your own. Don't worry, there's actually even a reset button. If we get in, place a few trades in the paper money, and we don't like how it's going, we can reset it. It's right over here under the Adjust Account. But let's do a little bit more with a couple of these tools. I want to go to the Charts tab. Steve says, how do you set toss in dart mode? So Steve, I actually showed a couple of ways that can be done. It can be set as we log in using the little gear at the bottom of the login pop-up window. We can also change it right up here under Setup under Application Settings. Go to Look and Feel and change it right there to dark, okay? And just apply those settings. But let's go to charts. Charts are almost always, when I'm introducing somebody to Thinkorswim for the first time, this is pretty commonly top of mind concept of item of interest. Cameron, show me how the charts work. These charts, the tools are fabulous. They are deep. I can't show everything, but let's look at the general navigation of charts. When we first type in a symbol, and by the way, if we're starting from a blank slate, let's do that. Let's just start from, oh no, this is literally the beginning. First time we've ever used charts. Well, we can type in our symbol in the upper left, or if we don't know a symbol, we could even just type in the name. So for example, if you know you're looking for NVIDIA, just type in NVIDIA, and a menu will appear that's prompting you, is this what you're looking for? All right, I'm looking for NVIDIA Corporation. So I'm going to click on NVDA, and that brings up a chart. Now, by default, this is going to be a nice, clean candlestick chart, but right away, we're going to be seeing details about NVIDIA. We can see the company here. We can see the current price, 157. Look at that, 157 on the nose, up $3.68 or 2.4% today. There's the bid and the ask price. We can actually share this chart with other users of Thinkorswim Desktop. Sometimes chart users are pretty proud of the work they do, and they want to share it with others. Hey, did you see this nifty system I built? Well, let me share that chart with you. I can click on share, it'll create a link, and you can send it off, and the other user can load it up in their Thinkorswim. But I'm not going to go into that today. But we can also add technical studies here. Chartists also tend to be big fans of technical indicators or studies. There are hundreds of those. If I click on this, you'll see a huge list of potential technical indicators. So if you have a favorite technical indicator out there, it's probably here. I can't guarantee it. I just say that the odds are probably pretty good. But in any case, let me just put one on. Let me show that process. So if we wanted to add a technical indicator to our chart, we just click on this little Edit Studies icon, and we just type in that indicator. For today, I'm going to choose RSI. Let's add that to the chart and just click Apply. As we click OK, there's that new technical study. This is just an example, not a sales pitch for using RSI for the analysis of stock charts. And then if we want to remove that study, we come back up here and click on the X, or maybe even just hide it from view for a moment. We can click the little eyeball and apply, and that thing is temporarily gone. Click the eyeball again, click Apply again, it's back. But I'm just going to remove it. Click Apply, click OK. So our technical studies can be accessed here. We can edit our chart settings right here. So up here are settings for the entire platform, like changing the background color. These are settings for just the charts. For example, we could just change the chart background color, or we could do things like, for some traders, they like to have some extra space off here to the right. So when they draw lines, they can go out into the future. That we can do under, well, that's an expansion of the time on the chart. So I'm going to go to the time axis. And for the expansion area, maybe I'll change that to 10 bars. This is 10 days in the case of this daily chart that we're looking at right now. But as I click Apply and click OK, you can now see, hey, I have some extra white space out here. I'm just teasing with some very, with just examples of the features that are available here. Of course, we're going to dedicate an entire webcast to using charts in greater detail. All right. But other things we can do, we can change our time frame. Right now, I'm looking at a 1 year. You can see all the months over the last year. Daily chart, meaning each one of these candles represents a day, represents 1 day's worth of trading. I can change those time frames right here. I can use a list of defaults, or I can do custom time frames right here. Time interval is the length of the chart. Aggregation period is the size of the candle. And then we could just change it right there. I'm going to go to the favorites. Maybe we switch this to a 3-year weekly. There's a 3-year weekly view of NVIDIA. Let's switch it back to daily. You'll notice as we make changes, it gives us a little reminder up here what time frame we're currently viewing. So right now I can see that I'm on a weekly chart. If I switch it back to a day, it's now a D for day. All right. Moving on to the next little tab here, we have the chart style. Right now, as I mentioned, this is a candlestick chart. Well, some traders maybe prefer a different style of chart. If I click on this, I can go to the chart type and possibly change this to like a line chart. I'm going to switch this back though. Let's put this back to a candle chart. We can make drawings on the chart. We can use this menu up here using the drawing tools. Another quick thing, and this is going to be a feature that's very common on Thinkorswim. There's lots of different ways to accomplish something. So for example, if I want to make a drawing, I can come up here to drawings, or I can go down here, and this little icon is telling me what my current drawing tool is. And you'll see my active tool is a trend line tool. That's the little slash. If I wanted to change that to some other tool, I could just choose one of our other tools, a pointer, horizontal line. I can make the text notes here, draw some arrows. But with each of those drawing tools, the way to make a drawing on Thinkorswim is just to go to where we want to start a drawing. Let's say maybe our trader has taken a keen interest in what's going on at that $150 level. Technicians sometimes look for price floors and price ceilings, and they might notice here on this 1-year daily chart of NVIDIA that that $150 level, and price just could not close above that level all year long until just the last week and a half. So just to represent that, maybe they choose to draw a line in there to highlight it. So I'm going to go over here to just start drawing a line. Let's put in it right about 150. And then I'm going to pull it over here to where I want to end that line. And I'm just going to click against. So it's not a click and drag. It's a click once to start a drawing and click again to end a drawing. And now that represents, maybe for our trader, that's where a price ceiling was. Maybe that'll be a new floor, and possibly our stock is taking off. All right. Probability Trader is asking Kevin, oh, can you share the video teaching of the not the Aaron? Kevin might not know what you're talking about there, Probability Trader, but the Arun indicator. That's a webcast that I did just recently. Actually, that brings up a great point. I'm going to come back to that point. So maybe I'll park that for a moment. But there are some other tools here as well, but we've already acquainted ourselves, I think, pretty efficiently with some of the most commonly requested features. There are lots of others that we're going to be exploring in an upcoming lesson. But let's now put ourselves in the shoes of this trader. Let's say that they've been looking at NVIDIA. They noticed that it recently pushed up through that previous price ceiling after about 11 months of trying. It pulled back down. That old ceiling is acting as a new support. Maybe they think the stock is going to take off. And so possibly they're interested in buying that stock and tracking the progress of that trade. Let's go place our very first trade on the Thinkorswim desktop platform. Obviously, to place a trade, we're going to go to the Trade tab. It's not the only way to place trades. As I mentioned before, with Thinkorswim, one thing that's really great about the platform, there are lots of different ways to get something accomplished. But here's one way to place a stock trade. Just do what's intuitive. Go to the Trade tab. And to place a trade on Thinkorswim, first of all, we want to make sure that we have the correct symbol in here. I already have it preloaded, but if we were, starting from scratch, we might just type in that symbol. And then to place an order, we're going to come to the ask price. Well, if the market is asking a certain price, we might need to pay that price. So as I point at the price just below ask, which is right now right at 157, I'm going to click on that, just a normal left click, and that creates a buy order right down here. Now I can customize that buy order until I'm satisfied with it. But as a default, for me, it's saying we're going to be buying 10 shares of NVIDIA at whatever the current price is, 157-ish. It's set as a default to a limit order. Now, not every trader prefers limit orders. They might prefer to submit something called a market order. A market order means I'm willing to pay whatever the market price is. I don't care. Just get me in. Sometimes used to optimize the likelihood of getting into a trade. There are risks when doing that because we don't know how much we're paying for the stock. If we want to limit how much we pay, maybe we set a limit order. How about we do this as today's example? I'm going to set a limit at 157.50. The stock right now is trading at about 157. So I'm just saying this is my ceiling. That's as high as I want to go. If the stock is available at a lower price, then I'll very likely pay a lower price, but that just won't buy it for more than that. Hadar says, can you elaborate how to add an SMA, a simple moving average, and a crossover under the market watch? That's getting a little bit deep, a little bit far into the weeds for this webcast. We'll be talking about that sort of thing in a future lesson, okay? But let me just click confirm and send here. We're going to put in an order to buy. Now, I could have, by the way, let me show this one other feature here. I always like to show as many as I can, and I have the time, so let's do it. I've set my defaults using the application settings up here to just create orders for 10 shares. Doesn't have to be 10. We can just erase what's in there and put in any quantity we like. So for example, maybe I only wanted 5 shares, or maybe I wanted 55 shares. Just type in whatever we want. Anyway, let's click confirm and send here. So now we're just going to buy 5 shares of NVIDIA as an example at a maximum of 157.50. If the stock is more than that, it just won't buy the shares. This will give us a quick total to tell us approximately how much this would cost if we had to pay that much. Might be less, just won't be more. There's no commission on this particular trade, but there can be on some types of trades. And I'm going to send that order off. Now watch what happens. As I send that order off, there's a confirmation. We just bought 5 shares of NVIDIA. I remember my heart skipped a beat the first time I ever did this in my real account. This is just a paper money account. So we can feel a little bit better. Okay. No real risk, unfortunately, yet no real reward potential either. But where would we go to check on the progress of this trade that we just placed, this order that was just filled? That's where we go here to the Monitor tab. So I'm going to click on Monitor, and this is where we can see the order filled right there. So there are the details of the order. And as we look down below, we can see our new position in NVIDIA. We own 5 shares, purchased at a price of $156.91. Shares are going down in value. So we're at 15 cents underwater across those 5 shares right now. Guys, we've actually accomplished what we set out to do today. I wanted to provide an introduction to the Thinkorswim desktop platform, starting with downloading. It doesn't cost anything to download Thinkorswim. It's free for download from within your Schwab Online account. Then we talked about logging in, choosing between live or paper money, got acquainted with the general navigation. Lots of questions left unanswered still, right? But the general navigation, we even planned and placed an example trade and monitored that on our monitor tab. So I think that's a good introduction to the platform, but still a lot to cover. So here's what we have coming up in future webcasts. Lesson 2, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into the monitor tab. Then we'll move on to the trade tab. Some of you are already asking about the charts tab. That's not a surprise to me. That tends to be popular. Anyway, make sure that you're following up, watching the rest of these lessons. And the place to find these, if you just happen to stumble across this using a YouTube search, or even if you're here in the live audience, do yourself this favor right now. Go down, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet already, down in the lower right-hand corner, you can click on the subscribe button. That only takes a second. It doesn't cost anything. But our YouTube channel is where we house these lessons. It's where we house the webcasts. We're doing 7 or 8 webcasts every single day that the markets are open. So to find those webcasts, go to YouTube and look for Trader Talks Schwab Coaching Webcasts. And you'll be able to find the webcast for this series. Go to Playlists. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, somebody had to be at the bottom of all of our playlists of webcasts. There's your Getting Started with Thinkorswim, and you can view the full playlist. And you'll be able to see Lesson 1 here pretty soon. Lesson 2 is upcoming. Last week, we had a beginner tutorial on building a custom scan with Thinkorswim Desktop. So you can check out all of these. Hey, there's Kevin. He filled in for me a couple of weeks ago, getting to know the grids, setting up multiple charts on Thinkorswim at the same time. Nice topic there, Kevin. Guys, also make sure that you're following Kevin and me on X. That's another great resource not everybody takes advantage of. If you have an account with X, you should be following your favorite presenters on that platform, because it's the best place to connect with us in between these live streams. And we go to X and we post things when we don't have the luxury of having a live stream going at the moment. So on X, you'll look for Kevin at Kevin Horner CS. Give him a follow. On X, you'll look for me at Cameron May CS. Make sure you're very precise with these. On social media, there can be similar names. So make sure it's at Cameron May CS. And you can see what I'm up to in between the live streams. So for example, you can give me feedback in a poll that I'm conducting right now. I just started it 2 hours ago. Hey, which of these factors do you consider before buying a stock? Do you just look at charts? You look at the company fundamentals behind the chart? You look at both? You look at neither? Looks like we have 60 votes so far. Got a nice little interactive tool there. And if you reply to one of my posts there, I try to reply right back to you. I spent actually a good 20 or 30 minutes earlier today answering things there. Probability traders asking, I can't go too far into that. Probability trader probably take the discussion a little bit off track. So you've asked a good question. I just won't get into that at the moment, just in the interest of keeping things on target. So I intend for this webcast to be helpful not only for my live stream audience, but also for everybody that might be watching it for weeks and months to come. But thanks, everybody. Thanks for giving me your time today. Thank you. Of the 107 people watching live right now, it looks like 46 of you already clicked that thumbs up button. That's very much appreciated. That's like a pat on the back to your presenter. It also gives us a boost in the YouTube algorithm, so more people can find lesson 1 and work their way down through the 8 lessons. So thanks for doing that. Kevin, thanks for helping out in chat. Everybody, I will see you again next week for lesson 2. Or if you're watching on the archive, just move on to lesson 2 right now. Assuming it's already been a week and I've already recorded it. But in any case, I'll look for you in future webcasts. I'll also look for you on X. But whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.